This is the final part in my video series on how to plan and write your own story. I have given you a story as a stimulus. You can use any story, but the children in my class, your first job when you are some of you working from home next week is going to be to create this story. I have set it as a to-do on our online learning platform, and you can use the app there to write your story and to add illustrations and animations. If there are any other children out there who are following this sequence and taking part in all the lessons, then I would imagine that you would probably be either typing or writing your story. So if you are a child who is writing this story by hand, then this is how I would start. Now, if you are a child in my class who isn't able to access the online learning platform for whatever reason, then I'm going to show you how I would like you to set this work out in your book, and you guys can email it to me or send me a photo. So the first thing that I've done is I've got my book ready, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. So the standards that we have quite high standards, and you guys, particularly in my class, are absolutely brilliant at setting your work out really neatly. So I do expect the same standard in this piece of work that I would expect if you were in school. So really pay attention to that, please, guys. So this is what my book is going to look like before I've started. So you can see that I have written the date at the top here, and I have used a capital letter for Friday because it is a proper noun, and I've also used a capital letter for March because it is a proper noun. I have joined all of my handwriting, and I have written as neatly as possible, and I've also used a ruler to underline my date and my title. So I have chosen for my story the title Winston versus Henry, and I have also done a subtitle here for chapter 1. So this is what your book should look like if you're writing your story by hand. Again, it's going to look slightly different if you are typing your story up or if you're using the online learning platform to create a virtual book and to animate it. So yeah, this is what I expect. So pause the video, guys. Set your book up to look just like mine. I'll hold this here. Obviously, you may have a different date if you are not completing this today. When you have made your book look lovely and neat like this, unpause the video and we'll move on to the next element. Okay, so you should now have your page, your book page, set up with your date and the title for your story, like I showed you earlier. What I have been doing just now is writing a really simple sentence to explain what's in my head. So what I mean by that is that sometimes it can be quite intimidating, pardon me, quite scary to think, oh, I've got a blank page, where do I start? And you don't straight away have to use a really fancy sentence. So think in really simple terms, what am I trying to say? What am I trying to tell my reader? And I've written that down, and then I'm going to take my sentence and make it sound a little bit fancier and maybe add some interesting punctuation. So what's in my head at the beginning of my story is it was, I've written here, it was a normal day. The humans fed me and left for work. So that's all I'm going to talk about in my first 2 or 3 sentences. Now, what I think is really interesting, and there are lots of different ways that you can start a story, what I think is really interesting is to start in a way that's going to grab your reader's attention. Now, you can do that using speech. If you are really confident with speech punctuation, absolutely go for that. What I am going to do in my particular story is I'm going to start with a really short sentence. For effect, I want to grab my reader's attention with a short, very simple sentence. And I can go in later and add some more complex vocabulary and maybe an adverbial opener or a relative clause. But to start off with, I just want a really simple sentence. So this is what's in my head. And then I'm going to skip a line and I'm going to write the sort of slightly more interesting version of what's in my head. And it might be that you want to pause the video and have a chat with the people around you, with the adults who are looking after you. You might have a brother or sister there. Have a chat to those people about some interesting ways that you could start a story. You might even look at some books about to see how other authors do this. And yeah, so have a chat about that. And whilst you're doing that, I'm going to write the first sentence or the first couple of sentences of my story. So I'll see you in a sec. Okay, so you will have seen me writing there, and hopefully some instructions as to what I was doing will have popped up on the screen. You will have seen me checking my story path. As you know, we wrote some vocabulary on our story path, which we're going to aim to include in our work. And I did have to stop a few times just to think, am I including that vocabulary? Am I writing in the first person? Because remember, we are writing the story from the point of view of the cat. And I started with a really simple what's in my head. And what was in my head at the beginning was that I wanted to just describe a normal day. So when the cat wakes up, it is just a normal day. And I also talked about starting my story with a short sentence for effect. Now, I'm going to read you what I've written. You are absolutely welcome to steal my ideas, my vocabulary. I won't be filming tutorials on the second and third paragraphs. You guys are absolutely capable of doing that on your own. But I am really looking forward to seeing what you all come up with. So here goes. In my head, remember, I was saying that I wanted to start with just any other day. Tuesday, the 2nd of September, started just like any other day in the Thompson house. Very simple, very short. I awoke calm and contented. That was one of my Mrs. Wordsmith words you can see on my story path there that I wanted to include. I awoke calm and contented in the house my humans brought for me. Of course, the life of a celebrity feline can be fast-paced and somewhat strenuous, which means that I require only the most exquisite place to sleep. A fleece-lined basket from Pets at Home might be good enough for some moggies, but it simply won't do for me. I managed to use my charms to persuade my humans to purchase some delightful sheets for the bed in the room next door. They call it the spare room, but you and I, dear reader, we know the truth. I awoke from my slumber feeling well rested, and I made my way downstairs for breakfast. That's all I've written so far. So what you can see is that I have tried to show my readers that actually this cat really thinks the world revolves around him. And the next thing that I am going to write is about Winston having breakfast. So I'm going to start with my simple sentence again. Winston had breakfast, or Winston was given breakfast, and I'm going to try and think about that situation from the cat's point of view. So he might talk about the humans going out and buying only the finest cat food for him, how it just appears in front of him every day and he doesn't have to do anything for the food. and he's quite a conceited cat. That is in Mrs. Wordsmith. He's quite he thinks very highly of himself. He loves himself. So all the way through my story, I'm going to really try and show that part of his personality. Now, I'm going to leave it there. What I would like you guys to do for the rest of your story writing is to really go through your story path in detail, break it down into simple sentences to start off with, and then try and describe in a little bit more detail what might be happening in that situation. So the next thing I have written here is that I want to talk about breakfast. So that's what I'm going to go on to next. I will finish my story, and I'm hoping to post a video of me reading my finished story. I am really looking forward to reading what you guys come up with. Please, if you are in my class, you are welcome to complete that on our online learning platform. As I say, if you're not able to access it, then please do either type it and email it to me, or you can write it in your book and take a picture and send that to me. Remember what I said, guys, I am really looking for that amazing presentation. So if the handwriting that you produce is not to the same standard that you would produce in school, you really need to think quite hard about that. I'm going to be looking really closely at presentation. I'm going to be looking really closely at which vocabulary you have selected, whether it's Mrs. Wordsmith vocabulary or the vocabulary that you guys have come up with yourselves. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. I'm going to be looking for amazing vocabulary, creativity, and the fact that you have just tried really, really hard with your presentation. Okay, I'm looking forward to seeing your work. Have a lovely weekend, and I will speak to you all soon. Bye.